thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so tell me.
It's my pleasure. I got a little.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you were if it was a glitch there. I think you glitched.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, I got a little podcast of my own. So when you're just getting started, I definitely want to help out as much as I
Yeah,
can, or whenever you
thank
can.
you. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, so I actually just do it for the Our Wisconsin Revolution, the organization I work for. So I just call it the OWR podcast.
Okay, great.
But we just kind of abbreviate it and call it the Revolution, and that's the Revolution podcast. So we just keep it short like that.
Nice. I like it. Yeah,
Mhm.
actually, I think when I was looking on your website, I came across it, but I didn't get a chance to listen. That's awesome. So is it like a regular thing, or is it just like when you have something to say for the organization?
Pretty much when I have something to say, and not necessarily because I always have something to say. It's more like when I have time to do it because like my
Yeah.
schedule is just kind of ridiculous. So like, I usually like to do it on the weekends, but the last few weekends have been just ridiculous. So I haven't even got a chance to do it on the weekend.
Hmm.
Um, and not to mention, I'm a huge sports fan, so the Bucks are in the playoffs. So I'm just like, I'm not recording it while the Bucks are playing. So there's no way I'm doing that.
Cool. I'm a total sports noob. I know nothing at all.
Well, the thing that's about sports is that like I don't take it too serious. You know how like some people just like super passionate about it. Like I was watching some games and like fans were like spitting at players and throwing stuff at them. I'm like, I could never do that. I never would take it that serious
Yeah.
because it's like no matter what happens to that team, whether they lose, whether they win, like it doesn't tangibly affect my life. I go home and I sleep good at night. Like these people are incredibly crazy. So like, sports is just like it's just a nice little distraction to get away from politics every 5 minutes and then I'm right back into it.
They're kind of similar in that respect, though, right? Because everybody in politics has a team too that they love to spit on other people for, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because I was talking about that and because traditionally politics was never supposed to be set up as a team sport. It was supposed to be set up as a way to represent people the best, as they can, but it kind of formed into this team sport over the years. And now it's like if you're a Democrat, no matter what's done, your team is right, and then vice versa if you're a Republican. And I think, viewing politics as a team sport is kind of the reason why we're kind of in this crazy situation that we in now, where it's just like, oh, if they hear that you're a Democrat or if they hear that you're a Republican, there's no conversation going on. It's just like,
Right.
you have nothing to say to me. And when we do that in sports, but it's different. Like nobody cares. Like if your team is terrible, you're gonna support them. Who
Right.
cares? It's a team because it doesn't affect anything. But it's very different in politics because like what your side does actually affects people.
Right. That's true. That's true. Although it seems like the more you watch the Democrats, the more they do things like Republicans anyway. So I'm not really entirely sure what the difference between the parties is anymore, other than there are people yelling at each other about it.
Well, it's funny. Have you ever seen this meme? They got those great value chips at Walmart, and it's just like Ripple and then like Ridges or something like that, and then it's a blue
uh
bag and a red bag. They're like that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. It's the same thing. It's just kind of rebranded, and that's really just it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and they both suck.
exactly, and I think Joe Biden is kind of exposing that, as we go further down his administration, because like he's not doing the public option, he's not canceling student debt, he's not really taking. I don't think he's going to take any real climate action. He might get back into the. Well, I think he got back into the Paris Agreement, but we know that that has no teeth in it, and
Yeah,
and he might well, and then he kind of fell back on $15 minimum wage. So you got to really ask, what is he really doing different? I mean, even Trump passed stimulus checks, so it's like
Right.
there's no real change, or
Technically,
it's
Trump
kind of
gave
weird.
over the 2 stimulus checks that Trump gave
Exactly.
more money. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. And it's
Exactly.
funny because like, so, I'm definitely one of the people that like sort of woke up late to the reality that like Dems are just like Republicans and it's all about, corporations versus the rest of us. And I mean, like, I always sort of knew about like, that it was corporations versus the rest of us. I was always sort of cynical, but I was always still a Democrat. But then I definitely had, an awakening when Trump, when Trump left office, and then it, Biden started doing everything that Trump did, and everybody was praising him for being a lefty. Like it all clicked for me, and I'm like, oh, like
Exactly.
Trump did stuff. Like I was one of those, I was hashtag resistance, and like I was like, I hate your Trump for everything he does. He's so corrupt, and but like he just did it out loud. He did what everybody does, but out loud. And people happen to hear about it.
Hmm.
Like that's the only difference. So I mean, I'm uh still reeling from the shock of that, honestly.
Well, I think, I kind of was late on that too, so you're not alone. Because I was like in college when Trump was kind of making his rise, because I was in my senior year of college, kind of getting through my finals and whatnot. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like not really checked into politics. But then after he got elected, I was like, what the fuck is going on, And
Right.
so I started looking into it. And now I actually started, more like straight up Democrat. Like, do you know what the like that Occupy Democrats Facebook page? Like I was
Yeah,
all into that, straight up
me
lib.
too.
Like I was going down that rabbit hole. But
Yep.
I think I watch most of my media on YouTube, so like I think like got some independent media suggestions, and I started checking those out. I'm like, whoa, this is way better than CNN. But I think it all depends on like where your media is coming from, who you surround your friends around. But if you do kind of catch that wind of like how bad the two-party system is, there's kind of that natural progression. Nobody really starts progressive. They kind of start in one of those wings, either your right wing or your left wing, and then you maybe kind
Right.
of get woken up to it. But I think we can't really like shame ourselves about like not starting off progressive. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Um, you just kind of have to be like, well, at least I you know woke up to the BS, and was like, okay, I can see that the two-party system is shit.
Right. Right. Right.
But like, I did want to ask you,
Tell me.
well, how did you get into politics, or how'd you get like interested into it?
Well, I mean, I actually came to it sort of through feminism. Because I like like I had a very like privileged bubble experience growing up. My mom was a teacher, and I went to private schools because she taught at them. And they were like sort of like lefty liberal private schools, but they were still, obviously private school. And so I didn't really understand what hardship was pretty much at all until my parents died. My mom passed away when I was in college. My dad passed away just after I graduated. And then I had to sell my house. And then after that, I couldn't find a job. And then slowly over time, I just went, broker and broker and broker, like as a last ditch effort to try to, get myself back on my feet or whatever. I took out a bunch of loans, and I went to a master's program that was too fucking expensive for what it was worth. And I was also taking care of my grandpa at the time, who had heart problems and was also developing dementia. So eventually I both went broke at the same time, and he developed, more severe dementia. And I went to live with him on his couch in his 1-bedroom apartment. And he is, or was, he was a like Norman Rockwell, like, 1920s kind of a gentleman, you know what I'm saying? Like, so he had all of the conservative hallmarks, even though he classified himself as a Democrat because he came from up here, I guess. He came from Pittsburgh. And so anyway, so he would treat me as some kind of bridge between his secretary and his wife, which is uncomfortable for your granddaughter. I mean, nothing weird, but he would order me around. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was definitely his house bitch, and I fucking hated it. And he was terrible at, like, being in charge because he was slowly losing his mind. And he didn't have a full perspective of what shit cost, like what was even the reality beyond, his doorstep, really. So it was a very radicalizing experience for me. It was very radicalizing just before that, when I went broke, like, sort of over a very short period of time, like pretty much like 6 months. I just like ran the fuck out of money. And then I did anything that I could to sort of make food money on a daily basis. And I lived in Brooklyn at the time, so I made crochet jewelry and I sold it on a street corner for food money. And I did that a few times and it worked out well. And then I did it one day. Actually, I did it twice in 14th Street, in Union Square. And the first day was great. And then the second day, I got picked up by a cop. Like, they fucking arrested me for selling crochet jewelry on the street corner without a license. So that was another radicalizing experience. I mean, like, I was very lucky in, I was very lucky in my experience with the cops at that point. Like, I definitely, like, I was in the paddy wagon with, like, 3 other guys, and I was the only white person in the car. And the 2 cops in front of me, was like right after Hurricane Sandy. And they were like, "Oh, it's so great to be back on the streets after Sandy, and like, busting bad guys, and, put the bad guys in jail and stuff." And I'm just like, I kept my mouth shut, but I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, the other guys in the van were asking me to like talk to them for them. And I'm like, have no idea what's going on, so, and I'm cuffed behind my back the whole time. So anyway, but I was very lucky. I got out in like a few hours and none of the other guys did. And I felt really badly about that. I hope they're okay. They did not take my money that day. And I was so grateful because I got to have dinner. And I'm pretty confident, like 99% sure they took the other guy's money. So that's pretty fucked up. But normal probably. Anyway, so yeah, like a combination of those experiences, propelled me into it. And then, I started, like trying to explain to older people around me why, millennials in general had a hard time getting employment. I was trying to explain my experience when after I graduated college, even before I went broke, like, there were just no fucking jobs. There just weren't any. Like, it didn't matter how much I pounded the pavement, as I was told to do. It didn't matter, how long I spent on a cover letter, or like how many resumes I sent out. I mean, like, I mean to write an article about this and go through my email, because I never delete an email, and I have all my emails from forever, and I want to go through and see how many say job application on them. And I can guarantee you it's over 1,000. I mean, that's just that reality of our generation. And that's not something that previous generations have experienced at all. And you can't, I had tried several times in my daily life to explain it. And, they didn't want to hear it. And I also didn't have the facts at the time. So that's what sort of led me to start developing this idea. I originally called it was a blog at first that I originally called Dear Old People, because I was, I don't know, I was, oh, I guess a little more optimistic in the fact that I thought old people would want to listen. So I was sort of like writing them like sweet letters, like saying like, don't you wonder why your children are silent, and just like shit like that. And like, I'm not sure it was the most effective. So anyway, but my content remained the same, that I'm trying to sort of just take a look at recent history for our generation, and really try to like paint a different picture than what was told of us. Because I'm so sick of hearing that we were entitled. I'm so sick of hearing that like we killed like parts of the economy that were dying anyway. Like it's not like it's not our fault. And we were promised a lot when we grew up in a boom period in the 90s that never came to fruition. And we should be the ones that are pissed at you guys for that. But instead, we were so gaslit for so long, and we were so afraid of not being able to get a job and not fitting in with the people who held the jobs over our heads. I mean, yeah. So we were sort of scared into trying not to be the entitled millennial. We're trying to be the cool millennial. We're trying to be like the responsible one. And we spent so much time doing that, we couldn't speak up for ourselves, and we couldn't really form, as much of a cultural movement as we deserved to, I think, in the public eye.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I just don't really understand, because like, I feel like every prior generation likes to like look down upon the newer generation, which is kind of funny considering like it's almost like the abused become the abuser type
Mhm.
situation. It's like, yeah, I know the generation would blame us for everything that's wrong in the world, but we're gonna do it again. It's just like, what? It's like you would think they would be like, all right, here's where we did wrong, here's where you guys can improve, and let's try to make the world a better place. But no, they're just like, now we did everything right. We and you guys are the reason why we can't have nice things, and that's just completely the opposite reason. It's like we haven't even got a chance to do anything yet. It's just like, and what's funny is just like, as like we get older and technology advances, life kind of becomes easier because we don't really have to certainly like have this extreme hard labor because of the advances of technology. It's like, well, you guys don't want to work hard. Well, you guys made the technology that made us more dependent and lazy on these things. It's like it's like you're the blame for it. Like if this stuff was never made, how can we ever be like dependent on like phones and cell phones and TVs and technology? Like you guys created everything that we're dependent on and that we use to like make life a little bit easier. It's just like, so don't blame us for living the life we live. But it's funny that you kind of bring up like the
Yeah.
struggles you've been through, because like so many people never actually see struggle, and they never really wake up, and as many people has experienced, like I myself, um I grew up extremely poor from the time I was pretty much born. So I always made a joke that like when the Great Recession happened, like I didn't see a difference in my lifestyle. It's like it was like nothing changed for me. But that's kind of the reality for so many people, that
Sure.
they constantly live in a great recession and they're never really paid attention to. It's only when the middle class is affected do people want to actually deal with economic disparity. But that's funny, that's kind of how the country works. But I think I'm not saying that everybody should have to experience poverty to understand it, but I do think we need to create a culture or even have some type of education just to understand that, poverty isn't a failure on the individual. It's usually a systematic failure, because if you don't have like good schools, or if you don't have like a good home infrastructure and a lot of things that help you climb up the economic ladder, then you're never really gonna actually, understand how to have success if you've never seen success. It's like trying to learn how to be an artist if you've never seen a drawing before, right? It's just like it's just not possible. But I think that's one of the interesting things about society, and maybe it can change. But we're so entrenched into this moral failure of life because you don't make a lot of money, and I don't think the success should be uh measured by how much wealth you can accumulate and whatnot, but more about how do you succeed in the field that you care about. But
Absolutely.
maybe one day.
Well, because that's the lie of the rich, right? Like, because they are convinced somehow that America is a meritocracy, so they have somehow become rich, or their ancestors have, and they come from a long line of genius, capitalists or whatever the fuck, and they somehow deserve to be richer than other people. And that is just a lie. That is
Mhm.
just a lie. It is not true. I have, I have seen, you know, like, I'm not going to say like the like royalty rich, but I've seen like, I went to school with like lawyer sons and, doctor sons and people who had money, and a lot of them were fucking stupid. And a lot of them are
That
going to
happens.
run companies, are going to grow up to be in the government, and there is just as much of a ratio as of stupid to smart in rich kids as there are in poor kids. That's just a fact. It's as there is
Mhm.
in all the races. Like, it's just, there's not like it's true. Let me put it this way: it's true that you can give a kid advantages. It's true that you can give a kid like just the advantage of being able to have food security, to have home security, and to be comfortable at home, not be in an abusive situation. That is already one huge advantage over, unfortunately, most kids, right? But at the same time, like, you can give a kid all the advantages in the world, and they can still be like just completely, I mean, there is no there is no answer. Like, the Democrats love to tell me when I was growing up that education is the silver bullet to inequality, right? That, like, if everyone just got an
Mhm.
education, then everyone could have all of these great middle to upper class jobs. But that doesn't really make sense if you think about it, because the people who have upper to middle class jobs depend on the working class people to do their jobs, right? I mean, like, could you be a doctor if
Exactly.
you didn't have somebody working at the cafeteria feeding you, or somebody working at McDonald's feeding you, or
Exactly.
doing your laundry or whatever? I mean, no. I mean, that's the lie. That's the lie.
Well, yeah, it's that situation where it's all selling a dream that can't actually be obtained. Um, and in reality, yeah, you're right. They don't actually want that because they need somebody to make their coffee at Starbucks. They need somebody to clean up their bathrooms at their businesses. So like obviously they don't want everybody to be middle class or management type education. The system doesn't work that way. And that's why and to bring that up, I had a conversation with my cousin the other day. He was like, "Well, I just don't believe people without an education or who work at McDonald's deserve a $15 minimum wage." I said, "It's not about education how we should value people. We should value people based on how we value. Imagine if your trash wasn't taken out every week. Like you would lose your shit because, trash would pile up and it would be smelly around your house and you would just go crazy." I'm like, I feel like that's worth $15 an hour because you need that person to pick up your trash. Or maybe when you go to a restaurant, you need a waiter because guess what? You don't want to look at the menu and then have to go find out how to get your food. So we value waiters very much. So it's just like we should base pay based off how we value people. And these janitors have to keep buildings clean. Who wants to go into a building that is completely filthy? Nobody, right? So
Right.
all these jobs are necessary and valuable, and that's how we need to value it. And since we do it based off like education and training, etc., we have this system like, oh well, since they don't have much education, they don't need to get paid as much. And I'm like, that's bullshit because like I myself, I got a 4-year degree, and guess what? I could tell you, like, I didn't get this amount of like extra training or education that or somebody can't just get off the street. Like, trust
Mhm.
me, like I could have literally not went to school and be doing the same thing I'm doing today,
Mhm.
literally. So it's just like I just kind of piled up debt for nothing. But that's what we need to restructure, and the only way we can restructure that is we kind of break down the two party neoliberal system, and
Mhm.
I don't know how to necessarily break that up, considering like even the
Uh,
progressives in Congress are kind of just going along with
I
how
know.
the establishment is going,
Yeah.
which is
About
frustrating.
that. Talk to me about the Progressive Caucus.
Oh man, you're about to get me started.
Get,
well,
get
you know,
started.
I was one of those initial people who really believed in Justice Democrats and kind of the takeover of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Like I was all in for it. I was like, this is a revolutionary idea. Like if we have those people who agree with us and have the same principles, there's nothing that can stop us. Fast forward a few years, it's very clear that they don't. Well, I think they still agree with us, but they don't have the backbone to fight for the policies as hard as they should. And I mean, it's very obvious that it can't be done. I mean, just look a few years back and look at the Tea Party, how hard they fought, and they made John Boehner literally step down from Congress. That's how hard they fought against him. And I think we need that same type of energy on the progressive left. That you'll get nothing through. We'll vote for none of your crap policies unless you put our agenda in here, and we'll block everything. Because and blocking most of that stuff wouldn't be a bad thing anyway, considering everything that they're trying to pass is corporatism out the wazoo. So it's like no one's regular is going to get hurt by you blocking most of this legislation. If anything, it's just going to be their billionaire donors or whoever uh, benefits from it. But I think, and it was something very interesting. I was watching an interview today, and they were saying it wasn't even necessarily always Nancy Pelosi who was blocking him. Like it was the leadership of the Progressive Caucus, like Pramila Jayapal, blocking
Mhm.
him because like she had an incentive to do things a certain way. So it's just like we're kind of cutting our own feet off and not really getting the results as getting any results. So it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
But like for me, I think our problem is that we don't really have an outside game. Like if we go back to history, they had they had communist socialists inside Congress, and they had a socialist party outside of Congress. They had inside outside pressure, no way, and they had union pressure. And now unions they kind of cuddle up to the Democratic Party, and that's another story for another day. But
Right.
basically, everything that you can use as a mechanism to force the Democratic Party left has been co-opted by the Democratic Party, and that's why we don't really see any actual progress. And until we kind of break our change from the Democratic Party, you probably won't see any change. We'll probably see the same old, same old. But yeah, it's tough. Obviously, it's tough to go in there and be like hard line progressive and stick to your values, but that's the only way things are going to change, and it's frustrating. But
Yeah, that was really well said. Absolutely. And a lot of us are angry, right? That we thought that's who we were electing. We thought we were getting these firebrand, anti Tea Partiers, and they folded before the game started. It felt like. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'd like to think maybe there's some long-term plan, like some 3D chess BS that there are, but no, I mean, like at this point, no. At this point, no. I mean, because they have, they have literally so much more power than Joe Manchin. And if Joe Manchin is your only excuse for not doing stuff, like that means you don't want to do it. Right? So
Well, Joe Manchin, he's just controlled opposition. Like people think
right.
like Joe Manchin, he just agrees with the Republicans. No, because if they really wanted to control Joe Manchin, they could. All they would have to do is say, "We're going to primary you. We're going to take you off committee seats. We're going to take power here and there," and he would buckle. But they don't want to. Like Chuck Schumer doesn't do anything. You see how like Mitch McConnell keeps his party in line. Like he doesn't play around. Chuck Schumer doesn't do anything.
No.
So I mean, he's controlled opposition. And that's clear proof that Joe Manchin isn't just kind of working on his own whims. He's really working as controlled opposition. Like
Yeah.
if they wanted to really make Joe Manchin buckle, he would. And that it's just simply the Democratic Party. So like Joe Manchin doesn't really have as much power as like they like to give him credit for. It's just the Democratic Party gives him that power, and that's why it seems like he's this all great, powerful Democratic senator.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And the media reinforces it, right? Yeah, for sure. Um, Manufactured consent, right? I'm
Oh yeah,
still,
oh yeah.
still reading on all the things I should be
Well,
reading leftist. But
what
what's that? I'm sorry, you broke up.
what was that?
I said you said something, but you broke up.
Yeah, you broke up for a second. I missed the last thing you said.
Oh, okay, that's what I said to you. So
Oh, I see what's happening here. Zoom, I see your game. Uh, but yeah, I think you said something about reading something. That's the last thing I heard. It was breaking
there's
up.
something about what?
It sounded like you were saying reading something. It was breaking up, so I couldn't tell.
I don't know, man. Shit. I
Who
don't
knows?
know.
But yeah, I mean, another. What was that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say another kind of frustrating thing that's been kind of pissing me off. And this is, the entire left that we kind of like cut each other off because of X, Y, and Z. So there's a lot of like left, in or not necessarily in party fighting, but left wing fighting. For example, like I've been watching some people like if you agree or watch this person on YouTube, unfollow me and never talk to me again. It's just like, okay, so you guys agree on 90% of the policies, but you don't want to have any dialogue with this person because they like a YouTuber? Like the left is kind of a joke if you think we're gonna win something and you guys are cutting off people who agree with you. So it's kind of weird how the left we have all this infighting as if we're in Congress and we don't have any power. So it's just kind of like it's really weird how the left acts amongst each other. And me, like I don't really get into the weeds of like the infighting too much. I'm just like, dude, how about you come to me when you're ready to work on something and let's get something done. I don't care about who you watch, what tactics you care about. If we agree on a policy, let's figure out the best way to do it and get it done. And that's how it needs to be done. And I think that's where we're missing a lot of opportunities at. But I don't know. That's just one of the things that frustrated me and I want to say.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I'm glad you bring that up. I mean, I completely agree. I think there are so many Twitter bullshit discussions that get blown up out of proportion, and uh it gets into this, like sports team rivalry even on the left. Yeah, whose podcaster are you behind? Come on guys. Like I I am I personally am for Jimmy Dore. I am for Force the Vote. I am for Bree and Katie Halper. But you know, the the idea of there being like so much like we have to be able to reach out to the progressives, right? Like if we're the left, if those people are the left at this point, right, then we have to be able to reach out to the people who are in the middle of that, between the corporate Dems. It's a very difficult balance, but I think it's necessary. And I think that, you know, a lot of the pissing contests, a lot of the fights that are picked are not necessarily solving problems. They're maybe just, getting people on their whoever side. And I'm not here to criticize that either, because honestly, like, you know, having a small podcast, as is very difficult, and trying to get people's attention is very difficult in this world. So like, on some point, on some level, like, yeah, whatever you got to do. But like, I think as consumers on the left, we need to understand that they have to do this kind of stuff to get you to pay attention. But that doesn't mean that you need to go and like not speak to your neighbor ever again. That shouldn't affect your personal relationships. That shouldn't affect your interest in trying to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't agree with you. Because if you both enter into the conversation in good faith, then it doesn't need to turn into a pissing contest. But then, if it doesn't turn out to be a conversation in good faith, then you can just walk away too. I mean, we have enough stress in this life. And I feel like, the people who are most likely to, and I count myself among this crowd, but the people who are most likely to pick a fight on Twitter are people who are getting something out of the fighting, right? So, I love fighting because it is cathartic for me. I have anger issues, and it feels good sometimes to yell at people. So I do
Yeah,
it, but I gotta
I
turn.
mean, some, yeah, and I feel you there. Sometimes it's nice to kind of like engage in with the Twitter trolls because it's kind of funny, but
Right.
like serious arguments, I just do not have online anymore because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna walk away still believing the same stuff they believe, and I'm gonna still believe the same stuff that I believe because like the
Yeah.
dialogue just doesn't work out that good on online. So
Right.
it's just like unless we're having an in-person discussion or like a Zoom call discussion, like I'm just not even gonna engage in it because it's so silly. But I mean,
Yeah.
every once in a while I'll get on Twitter and like troll, but it's not real like being serious. I'm just like I mostly troll politicians because they can screw off, but like regular people, like you have no power. I'm not gonna really engage with your
Yeah.
argument like that. So it's all fun and games for me, but some people get a little bit too riled up about it.
Yeah. It's intense. It's intense. For sure. But so I'd like to go back and ask you a question that we sort of touched on in the panel, and maybe you can elaborate on it a little bit. So like uh how do you think, like, we could, you know maybe, all right, let me put it like this. How do you think, we can sort of incorporate what we've learned from COVID and COVID organizing and techno organizing, and sort of help us on the streets going forward? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think, like just from my experience, like trying to adapt as an organizer from everything that COVID has taught me is that there is a lot more power in online organizing than, I kind of initially thought. Like connecting with people online, it's definitely weirder, but you can kind of adjust because you can really meet people where they're at. Like you don't have to like drive across the state or something like that. So it makes it a bit more convenient. So like using the power of technology, making use of Zoom calls and all these things that we have can be extremely effective engaging with people who don't like to travel or get out the house too much. So like I know like from my experience, it really has helped like, reach out to people who are like introverts who get like anxiety, um, like going to events and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more laid back. It's not as pressurous, like it can be hard to go up to people and talk to people and, try to be comfortable. So like I think that's one thing I can say that we can learn about from COVID is like we have to be able to engage with people who are not normally like used to the social aspect of politics because like I'm an introvert myself and it's not easy like engaging with people because like sometimes you don't know what to say, you're a little bit like what if I act weird or something like that. All these thoughts are going through your mind, but like when you engage with people online you can kind of ease into that a little bit more, like um have one-on-one conversations and let it be a little bit laid back, because it's hard to have those one-on-one conversations at events because like so much is going on, especially as an organizer, like well I gotta go talk to X, Y, and Z, so I only have a few seconds to speak with you. So I mean maybe that's not a huge point, but I think it's big for me in my opinion because like I'm pretty much a social introvert, and I know how like impactful it 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 can feel when you have that social anxiety going to in-person events.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely identify with that myself. And I mean, I think, you make a lot of good points too about, maybe how we can sort of rethink or restructure canvassing in the future. It's, I've always wondered, like, how effective is it really to go knock on doors? And I'm sure that it depends on the neighborhood and the issue and or candidate, whatever. But it how many people do you think are going to be home during the day? One. And
Mhm.
two, like how many people don't just ignore you if they don't know you, like that you doesn't it feel like most people do that? And then yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's studies on that. I could definitely probably research it and get back to you. But um, you know, I would be, I think that there would be
Yeah, and I think canvassing
oh yeah,
myself.
go ahead.
Oh, it's breaking up a little bit. I was just
Yeah,
gonna say, I've done some canvassing myself, and I think when I did do canvassing. Oh, am I still breaking up,
no, you're good. Keep going.
or is it good now?
It's good now.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna. I've I've done some in person when I did do canvassing. Normally, maybe 20% of people would be home. Sometimes even less than that. So like you don't really talk to as many people as you would hope. And that's why they always have like people like canvass the same place like three times and hope to get to that person that they didn't get to. But I
Hmm.
think the value of canvassing is if you do get that person in person and you make an impact, they might tell, 5, 6, 7 more people about your campaign or whatever you're doing. And I think
Hmm.
that's the impact because you don't really anticipate it being that individual and like it stops at that individual, but more like that person will go and do some more word of mouth promoting for you. But I think what online canvassing, the benefit of it would be, you can definitely it's a little bit more convenient because like let's say if we like DM 100 people or whatever, like they can
Hmm.
get to it when they can. If they don't answer, whatever. But at the end of the day, they still saw that message. Like who knows if they actually read the literature or if the literature flies away in the wind or something like that when you're canvassing because who knows what kind of weather conditions you're canvassing in. But I think definitely some online canvassing is going to be a lot more part of the future. Um, and I don't know exactly how that's going to be implemented, but I definitely think that's going to be how the future kind of goes when it comes to like reaching people politically. And really, it already has. I mean, I get texts like nonstop about campaigns, and I get like messages from like groups on Facebook, and it's all this stuff. But I think there also can be a negative side to that because if you're getting overwhelmed by it, you kind of just check out. So when you get one of those texts, you're like, oh, I'm not reading that shit. Fuck
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah, totally. It's hard
yeah, so
letter and you don't have a relationship. Yeah, I get it. Totally.
mhm,
Yeah. And on some level, no matter how much you improve the process, there's going to be some level of that, right? That's just the nature of the game, for sure. For sure. Um,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I had I had something. I mean, so I think online activism for me is definitely empowering because of uh some of the constraints you mentioned, like anxiety and stuff, but also like there are time constraints too, right? I mean, most people just don't, if you're really working like 2 to 3 jobs to survive, you don't have time to go anywhere, and your off hours are weird, most likely. So I like that online activism gives us a chance to sort of do it on our own time, um,
Mhm.
and make connections with people in different, parts of the country, which is awesome. And I feel like, there, I think that there's like a lot of room for creative content. Like you really see, like, I think an explosion right now of independent media, leftist podcasts, all that kind of stuff. Certainly since COVID, I would assume. It's good that in some ways, like, the internet provides a kind of wild west of content, right? Like, it sort of democratizes it a little bit, because there are obviously, YouTube and Facebook like definitely ban people and mess with people's algorithms and all kinds of shit. But um, I mean, in some capacity, like, I if like, for example, like if I wanted to put out an idea, what, back in like, you know like, I don't know, maybe like the 1910s or something, I would have had to go stand on a street corner and like shout about it. People did that, right? They want
Right.
something, right? Like they just stand on a soapbox and just yell about it and hand out pamphlets, right? I mean, think about how uh much more, I mean, in some ways more convenient, but in some other ways more work intensive and creative you have to be to get
Mhm.
heard, one, among a global, or, well, global, but national sort of media atmosphere, traffic, right? So like, you know it yeah, I feel like I'm losing my thing here, sorry.
No, I know exactly what you mean, and that's true. I think it does like give more opportunity for more democracy or free speech.
Right.
But they're also, the establishment and the powers that be are also fighting back against it. I think you
Yeah.
probably seen it that YouTube has suppressed 80% of independent media, basically, and so like the powers that be want to keep their power and they're doing everything they can to suppress it. So it's kind of like that catch 22. Like we're getting more free speech and more different opinions,
Hmm.
but they're also doing everything they can to make sure those opinions never actually get heard. But that's why I'm in favor of like breaking up the social media platforms because they just have too much power to suppress those voices. Like I think there shouldn't just be one YouTube. We should have like at least 3 or 4 YouTubes that people can take advantage of, and then that way, YouTube has to compete on these merits that most platforms couldn't even wish to compete with YouTube on. So I think it is great that we have more online stuff, but I think that also has to be coupled with you know regulations that protect free speech and allow competitiveness within the marketplace of ideas, as Dave
Yes.
Rubin would say.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes, you're absolutely right about that, for sure. Um, it's yeah, for sure. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say about that too, but I can't think of it now. Uh, so, do you want to talk about? Oh, first of all, we can talk about your town hall if you want to,
Yeah,
on
sure.
camera because we didn't do that before. I wasn't recording
Yeah,
for
sure.
that. Sorry. And then also, like, if you'd like to talk about sort of like your past protest experience, and just like I did a lot of. Oh, this is what I wanted to say about it. Sorry. So like I love the fact that last summer there were so many independent journalists that were capturing the BLM protests, and there was so much footage online, and like me several other people like put together a bunch of montages and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of thing that doesn't make mainstream news that I love to see.
Hmm.
And I think that the more that we can encourage people on the ground to record what's happening around them, and network with the right people to get it out there, the better. I think that, like, in some ways, we need to re revolutionize how we deal with media, right? Because we don't have journalists going out too much anymore. They don't have the time or money for that. And there's not just like tiny newspapers that are local that have people on payroll anymore. Like that doesn't happen. So like the more you know that organizers and people who attend actions can publicize for themselves what's going on, the better it is for the media people and then for the general public too, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like even after the Jacob Blake situation happened in Kenosha, I was even down there kind of like streaming and whatnot.
You were
And I
in
know
Kenosha?
yeah, yeah, and I was streaming and from and kind of letting people know what was going on down there. And I
Yeah,
know people seeing that stream that aren't really politically active. So the nice thing about, kind of today's media apparatus is anybody can kind of be that journalist, or independent media
yeah.
person. Um, but
Oh yeah,
also, you
tell us about
know,
experience. I'm sure that was a crazy night.
oh yeah, it was crazy. I got hit with a rubber pellet. And then, we were getting like they were shooting gas and stuff, and it was crazy. Like they had the armored cars, and a fire truck was on fire, and it was like a war zone. It was crazy.
Wow.
Um, but like I said, like the nice thing is that um everybody can kind of come become independent journalists or independent media, but at the same time, like I said, very few corporations can control that apparatus. So if they want to cut your stream or if they want to take off your content, they can do it at any time because
Yeah.
they don't agree with what you're showing. Um, which, obviously there are some things that I do think that kind of draws the line. Like, obviously, I don't think people should be getting like extreme violence put on there, where, you know, and there can be different cases of that. But I think when it comes to like covering the exact same things the mainstream media will cover, like we should have free range to do that as well.
Ab-
But yeah, yeah, it's powerful. I mean, and as technology advances, it's just going to get more and more as like people are going to get into that. And I think it benefits us all because we're able to see, you know, what is happening unfiltered without the eyes of the mainstream media. Like,
yeah.
okay, we seen it for our eyes on the stream. Like, you can't tell us that X, Y, and Z didn't happen because it doesn't fit your narrative. So I think, yeah, it's amazing what has happened as far as technology, but we still have a huge segment of the population who still go to legacy media to get their news and get the so-called truth. So I think we need to start, getting people, more acclimated to the new independent new media, and I think that's when we can really take off. But that's going to take some time because people are still kind of attached to cable to this point.
Boomers. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Like
yeah, for,
I don't even remember the last time I paid for cable. Like I haven't had cable since maybe
yeah.
2011, and my dad paid for it, and
Right,
that was a
exactly.
while ago.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
I don't
what
even
I
like
had to do when I was living with my grandpa.
exactly. So like so I mean I know now they're doing like they're still trying to keep cable alive with like Hulu TV and YouTube TV and like Sling or something, but like I think that stuff is like mostly people get it for sports and like because like if you want to watch movies and stuff like that, you don't want to watch commercials, so you just
Yeah,
watch like your streaming device or whatever you're on. So like it's not like it's really gonna pick up that much. What they're gonna do is just try to find um different ways to get people to sports. And I think honestly, I think sports, and this ain't political at all, I think sports should have their own streaming platforms because cable has really made it hard to even watch sports because you're telling me I got to pay like $60 for a package of all these channels so that I don't watch just to watch one or two sports teams like seasonal and
yeah,
they don't even play all year. This is like that doesn't seem like it makes sense. So that's why like for me it doesn't like the benefits don't outweigh the costs. So I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'll just watch the highlights on YouTube, you know. So it's just like
right.
or I'll just like go to a friend's house who has cable or I'll go to a bar that's showing the game. Like, yeah, it's
Right.
like I'm not gonna pay for it, It's kind of
Yeah,
silly.
yeah, totally, totally. Oh,
I know that
some
was
sports do that though, the streaming services like the WWE, right? They have one, and I just
yeah, I
don't
think so.
have one. I think the Yankees have one. They had a cable channel called Yes. As I know that much. If
Oh
they
yeah.
converted to some kind of subscription plan, I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, our
I don't watch most of them, so I would have to like
with
research it, but I assume like they probably have something.
yeah, I'm not a huge sports fan, like I said. Like I live in New Jersey. I'm very close to New York City, so like I kind of have to like the Yankees, like otherwise I'll get beat. So
I can imagine it gets really dangerous
my
if you're
dad
not a
was
Yankee fan.
a fan, and that was already a lot of trouble growing up, so I don't like to talk about it. No, but yeah. Um, but okay, so I did have an idea where I wanted to take this conversation. Oh, so yeah, like okay, so I kind of like to ask you about vegan Kenosha. Like what like so like you always when you hear people having conversations about nights like that, right? They always go like, well, I it's really great that a lot of them started out peaceful, but then, like the people who came to riot and loot and light fires and stuff, like that's just going overboard. Like that's so blah 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 blah. And like, then you hear a lot of other people
Hmm.
saying, how much of that stuff did BLM activists really start, and how much of it, did I know there was a lot of I don't know what they call themselves, but there was some kind of militia there that night, right? That's what's his face was part of. I can't remember his name.
Hmm.
Rittenhouse,
Yeah,
Kyle.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah.
So yeah, can you speak to that a little?
Well, yeah, so like from my experience, obviously, it might be anecdotal, but I can tell you like from my experience, um 90% of the protests were peaceful, So everybody's marching, they were having good dialogue and everybody was talking and obviously, some people were swearing at the cops, but whatever, that's free speech and you can do that.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I actually streamed this too on Facebook. Um, so like it was peaceful, and out of nowhere there was this woman who I don't think she was even part of the protest. Out of nowhere, she just brought a whole bunch of water bottles that weren't there. And this was like towards the night when it started getting dark. So like people start picking up the water bottles and throwing them at the police. And I'm like, well, where did she come from? Was she part of the protest? Like, and it was weird because like, was she an infiltrator? I don't know. Why would she bring those water bottles to get thrown? Because they weren't there. I mean, like people had water, but it wasn't in abundance. Like she was dropping off cases out of nowhere. It was weird. I'm like, so and then like I was actually like streaming and trying to talk to people. And there were definitely some people like, no, I don't want to be on camera because they were planning to be violent. Um and I think they were infiltrators. They didn't want their face to be seen.
Mm,
So like that's my opinion. I don't know, if obviously it's hard to tell what is actually true in those situations, but it was peaceful. Like it's funny, like now that you can't really see people's faces because it's getting darker, like people start to do little different things.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I would say like the narrative that it's just like violence and bad is just not true. And in my opinion, obviously I think there was some infiltrators that were brought in to give them excuse to crack down more on protesters and bring in armored cars and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think that's the issue. And as far as like Kyle Rittenhouse, I actually did quite a bit of research on this. Um, Obviously, this is pretty well known at this point. I mean, the police were pretty much on the side of the militia people, like, hey, you guys, if you guys need some water, or, whatever, let us know. Like they were supporting, their militia actions, like deputizing them, which was weird because that's an extremely dangerous situation when you
Mhm.
have a whole bunch of emotional protesters and then people with guns, like that's a powder keg. So
Yeah.
the police had a huge action in the reason why things didn't go very well in Kenosha, or the sheriffs, I believe it was at that time. But I think when you're at these protests, like there's a lot of sketchy stuff that goes on, and you have to pay attention. Like I was watching very closely to everything that was going on, and there was stuff that did not add up a lot of the time, and you had to like second guess it or question it. Um, but
Like,
I think it drives the narrative. For people to feed into the violence because they think that's what it's all about. But you know, from my experience, it was very peaceful until it got dark out, where things can get done where people can't see because obviously during the day, people can see more and call people out and whatnot, so it's a little bit different. But yeah,
right.
it's a weird experience. But I would say I would say like the police are looking pretty much for any excuse to crack down harder on protesters, and that's not just in Kenosha. That was everywhere, all the protests.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my experience.
Wow. So were you there the night that Kyle Rittenhouse shot those people?
No, I wasn't there that night, luckily,
Good
but
for you.
we had some members from our organization down
Wow.
there at that time, and they were saying that just like minutes before, some of them were like talking to the militia people, like actually talking to like some of the protesters, and they were like having good dialogue. And I don't know what it was with Kyle Rittenhouse, but I guess he wasn't really a part of, I don't know. It was really weird, but like I think he shouldn't have been there in the first place considering like he was like what 17, 16 or 17. I'm
Yeah.
like, why is his parents letting him go be a militia person? It was weird.
His
So I
mom.
think
Him.
yeah, his mom let him go down there.
Right.
And he's 16. Like, what mom lets you go to a protest with a gun if you're
Yeah.
not like protesting on the side of peaceful protests? That makes no sense. So like the whole
Right.
situation didn't even make sense. Like somebody should be prosecuting the mom, not even him. I mean, he
Right.
should get some punishment, but somebody should be prosecuting the mom. Like who? And isn't there a curfew like for 16-year-olds? Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but that's just I don't know. That just shows you like everything just is different when you're fighting for the system instead of against it.
Mm-hmm. And when you're white.
Exactly. Obviously, there's a huge amount of white privilege that goes on in those situations as well. So, yep, that's America for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I put together a compilation of some of the videos that I found um at the time, and I just remember like they were, I mean, cops were literally like hanging out with the militia people. They were like telling them like, oh, we're going to drive them down to a certain area and then we're going to let you guys go have them. Like they were going to corral protesters and then let the militia have them. Right? Like that's so epic. That's so epic. And I mean it definitely evokes, strong KKK vibes, right? Not to,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, yeah,
But like it's pretty well known that white supremacists have infiltrated police stations across
yeah,
the country. I mean, that's no secret.
right.
Um, so I mean, it's kind of like part of the course that there's going to be like straight up racism in every police department. The only issue is that they don't care about cracking down on it. In fact, they probably embrace it in many ways, and even put it in their training. I mean, like they've even said, like they 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 handle situations with black people, with car stops and things like that, compared to white people. So like
Yeah.
it's not even a secret. It's just like it's just known, and it's just the only sad part about it is that it's known and nobody cares to do anything about it. Instead, like they will either double down or they just like try to cover up the shit that they do, and that's they never have like any atonement for it, which is just, I mean, that's kind of in the American DNA. It's just like genocide, don't atone for it. It's just like look past it.
Yep.
um, Lock up a whole bunch of Asian people during World War II. Never apologize. It's just like it's just American way. It's just how things are done here, and nobody really cares to change it.
Yeah. I mean, that's power, right? I mean, in some ways, Trump was the perfect embodiment of that because he was the big fat white man going, I don't feel bad. I'm not gonna apologize. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's funny, like how many like liberals like hate um, Donald Trump, but literally the manifestation of America. Like he's fat
Yes.
white guy, loves
Yeah.
fast food, um, loves like women. He's like a complete douchebag in every
Right.
way. And it's just like he's very emblematic. He's probably racist. More than likely he's racist, like especially
Oh,
what he did with the Central Park Five kids.
yes.
Like he's literally exactly the manifestation of what America is, and liberals hate it because it's like ripping the mask off of what we really are. And I'm just like, I mean, this is literally what America is. I don't know like why they just don't like it because it's like showing exactly what it is. And it's just like, well, you made this person.
Yeah.
He didn't make y'all, you made him. Like you guys should be embracing him, or at least like understanding how he came to rise, and that's because of the complete lack of democratic inaction, and the complete abandonment of the working class
Um,
of America. And so it's like you guys made him. It's like don't blame him for doing exactly what he was always going to do. You guys created this beast, and now you got to deal with it.
that's right.
In
That's right.
ways, Joe Biden he's exactly the same. He just doesn't, talk shit on Twitter or say stupid stuff in the open. So like, I mean, he does say stupid shit. I mean, like
Oh,
he said, "You don't vote for me, you're not black." So he says stupid shit
oh
too.
God, when he said that. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Totally. And he keeps saying like terrible things about, young girls and sniffing hair and like did you hear he said recently, like a week or two ago, like there was some girl in the audience and she was, I don't know, 12 or something. And he was like, look at her sitting there with her barrettes and her legs crossed like she's 19. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, like, I definitely think that half of that is blatant misogyny, obviously, but like half of that too is just like, here's a man who is so beyond his over the hill, right? Like he's like, he reminds me of my grandpa who I watched, deteriorate from dementia. And I like see that in Joe Biden. I see it, like I
Mhm.
honestly believe that there is a younger age limit to be president, but I honestly believe there should be an upper age limit as well. This has got to be like one of the most ridiculous situations. Seriously.
Yeah, and it's funny because like a lot of liberals are like, we got to make sure Trump is can actually function as president, and they just kind of completely took a blind eye when asking that same question about Biden, who clearly has signs of like dementia. But
Yes.
it's a double standard, and we know how the game works.
Right, for sure. And also about Biden, I think he's kind of got certain confidences from Trump, right? Like the fact that he had the balls to say that you ain't black, that if you don't vote for me, is like, I mean, yeah, okay, so it's half Trump and half the fact that he was Obama's VP, right? For 8 years, and he was riding the cool coattails of Obama. So that definitely played a huge part of it. But I definitely feel like there's some kind of Trump bravado in Biden's manner. Like it feels like they're definitely of the same ilk in the
Mhm.
first, but like I definitely feel like he saw Trump's campaign, or he saw Trump's presidency and went, oh, like it's okay to be a strong man. It's okay to
Mhm.
tell people to go fuck themselves. And that's what he's been doing ever since, he started running. Essentially, he's telling people to go fuck themselves. Don't vote for me then. You look at my record. If you don't like it, don't go vote for me then. You know? Well, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly, and he can take it a step further because obviously the media isn't gonna hold him to the same standard as they hold Trump. So like,
right.
yeah, I mean that's literally that's literally how it works. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's messed up, but again, that's probably why we need more. I mean, this is not probably. This is literally why we need more than just a few media companies owning all the news networks.
yeah.
So but
Really.
we need obviously a progressive or a Congress that's willing to break up the media companies because it's just complete shit show. It's terrible.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely think, on that subject, and I'm sure we could go on forever about that. As far as breaking up large companies, like, yes, we need to be pushing for that in Congress, but I also would like to see us, organizing for, like workers to buy stock in their companies and take back ownership of the companies that they work for. I would love to see, because the thing is, like, I I love hate Amazon a lot, right?
Hmm.
Like like they are so amazingly good at being evil and like being 1985 like Big Brother, like sci-fi creepy. They're really really good at it, and it's horrible, but it's also like it also really benefits us in other ways too. Not just that I can get my package on time, but also that like they really enabled the self-publishing platform to take off.
Hmm.
And like their entire self-publishing platform, and now with Audible too, it's
Hmm.
like entire businesses are started on Amazon. Entire small businesses are started on Amazon when they import stuff from China and then resell it on Amazon. I mean, like
Hmm.
the small businesses, like the five and dime stores of the 1940s or whatever the shit, are now Amazon stores. They're eBay stores, right? So like, that can't be discounted either, even though they're evil to their workers. Like maybe, maybe the workers taking back, what they really make, you know, maybe that would help the situation. Maybe, you know, maybe we wouldn't have to like burn Amazon to the ground. Maybe we can just make better, right? Like,
yeah, I think it might help, but I think another idea, because yeah, I think like stocks are important, but I think also having like worker representatives on corporate boards would go a long way because there are no
sure.
worker voices. Like even if you have the stocks, like it won't change, how the direction of the company is taken if you don't have workers on the boards of those companies.
That's an
So I
excellent
think it
point.
has to be twofold. It has to be twofold, and but yeah, I think that idea has to be definitely explored a little bit more. But I kind of see Amazon kind of like, have you ever seen Lego Movie? I'm about to make a
Yeah,
silly joke,
yeah.
but I kind of see like Jeff Bezos as like Lord Business. He just wants to
Yes.
control everything. And if you think about it, he's getting closer and closer to that. He has like, Amazon everything. There's Amazon
Yeah.
food stores. There's Amazon, like you said, Audible. So it's taking out the book industry or taking out the brick and mortar bookstores. So like he's literally taken over. Like before you know it, everything is just going to be made by Amazon. They're going to have like Amazon cars. And I think they used to even make like that Amazon Fire Phone, but that failed pretty spectacularly. So it was really nice to see that failed.
Yeah.
But he just wants to be in everyone's life. And like I refuse to get like one of those Alexa things. I'm just
Oh,
like,
hell
no, I'm not putting that shit in my house.
no.
But
That's just,
it's just like it's scary. It's scary when you think about it. It really is. It really
yeah,
is like a dystopian future.
yeah. It is. It's like I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and it constantly amazes me. It really does. Like because half of me thinks it's cool, right? Like
Mhm.
that's the other thing. It's like
It would be cool if it was straight up just like a sci-fi book, but it's reality, so it's like really fucked up.
right, totally, totally.
Like if you went back into, let's say, I don't know, let's say you had a time machine and went back into 1947 or whatever and wrote a book about like Amazon as a sci-fi book, exactly how it is today, everybody be like, that shit would never happen. But it was a
Right,
good book, and then it actually happens.
right.
That's literally how it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's messed up. It's really messed up. I mean, yeah. I mean, though, in some ways, like I guess the whole technological revolution is kind of like that. But Amazon in particular, they're kind of winning right now on that on that front.
Yeah. Isn't Jeff Bezos about to go to space or some
Oh my
shit? I don't
god.
know.
So like
But,
both
but
Jeff Bezos and Elon
that's,
Musk have um built their own space penises that they intend to like make available for commercial rides to space. And
mhm.
there was some kind of contract up for a bid between them for NASA, and Elon Musk won it. But
Oh
Jeff Bezos
wow.
tried so hard that they awarded him a second contract. So now the company has, so I mean, now our government has wasted money on two space penises, not just one. And it literally looks like a penis. But
Dude, nothing makes sense anymore.
no, mm-mm. I mean, he's like, yeah, I mean, he's
Nothing
literally like
makes sense anymore.
from Austin Powers, right? Like, um,
It's
yeah.
bad. My gosh. How do we stop the bloodshed? It's just so
Uh,
bad. I don't know. Man, I don't know. It's kind of like you want to like do something about it, but like everything we're trying to do is just getting crushed at every like even unionizing the Amazon workers hasn't even worked. So it's just like everything we're trying to do to like slow down Amazon is just like not working.
I mean, we're taking on the richest company in the world, right? Is it
I,
the rich?
I believe so.
Jeff Bezos is rich. The
If it's
richest.
not the richest country or the richest company, that's a funny little Freudian slip I just made there. I just call Amazon a country. It basically is as at this point. It's a little, independent country that's like working inside
Oh fuck,
every.
it's Apple.
Oh,
Sorry.
really?
Yeah, I'm so shocked.
Well, that does make sense because their products are so overpriced. So
Yeah. True.
yeah, I don't know, but Apple's terrible too because like
Yeah.
I don't know, they're terrible. I've never bought an Apple device, so and I used to work at a phone store, so I know like that their products aren't really much better than everybody else's. It's just like the brand. So
Yeah.
like I used to try to sell some phones to people like literally this phone has better features and it's cheaper, and they're just like, no, I want the Apple because um their text show up green or some shit. I don't know, something stupid like that. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, who the fuck cares? And they're just like, I don't know. It's all about branding, but they've like instilled their branding into people's heads to the
Yeah.
point like even if you can get a better phone for cheaper, it's just like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah.
It's weird. It's very weird. Like I said, we're in dystopia and materialism has taken over, and before
Mhm.
you know it, Lord Business will be selling you coffee for $37 a pop.
If Lord Business is actually voiced by Will Ferrell, I might be okay with that. Maybe. Just maybe.
Right. Right. Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows how things would have been if Bernie would have got elected, but obviously that didn't happen. So who knows what the future holds?
Yeah. I mean, we're just going to have to keep fighting. What else can we do? Right?
Hmm. Exactly. 100%.
Keep grinding.
All we can do.
Right? Right. This was an optimistic ending. So that was good.
Yeah, we
Happy
gotta give it a
it.
good ending. But in my defense, I did leave it on a funny Lego movie reference. So at least you can laugh about our despair.
Indeed. Indeed. I think that's really, if you were to take away anything from millennial splaining, perhaps it's that millennials are all very depressed, bleak, and possibly suicidal. Right? Yeah,
Pretty
like
much, yeah.
the
It's getting to that point. It's
for
just
that.
like,
Remember like the Area 51 thing and how everyone was gonna like bum rush Area 51 to see what was in it? Like it was a couple years ago. And like I saw a
yeah,
meme
I
that was
remember.
yeah. I saw a meme that was like everybody's like all young people are gonna bum rush it, but nobody understands that it's not because we care about aliens, but it's because we're suicidal.
Exactly. It's like just get it over with.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely remember that time.
Yep.
Um, and they were like, I'm gonna anime run into Area 51 and dodge all
Right.
the bullets. So it was a lot of stuff there, but
They
I don't
can't
know.
kill
But that's how bad it's gotten. It's just like I'm willing to risk it all just to see an alien.
us, right?
It's crazy, but
Yeah. Yeah. And in some ways that is our view of hope for the future. That's essentially where we stand, right?
and up next, stay tuned for the UFO podcast.
Yeah, right.
It's
Well,
gonna
we did
get
already
crazy.
cover weaknesses, so I guess it was the next the next step. Anyway, this has
Oh
been
yeah, oh
great,
yeah.
and this was a really great interview, and let's do it again.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And if I can find time, I'll try to get you on my podcast one of these days.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up, or?
Um, yeah, I mean, if people want to check me out on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Andre at underscore Walton 56. Don't come Twitter argue with me because it won't work. I'm just gonna ignore it. I won't block you. I don't block people, but I will ignore your Twitter arguments. And you can also find me on Facebook, just my name, Andre Walton. So if you want to find me, that is where you can find me.
Very cool. I'm gonna friend you on Facebook too, now that I know.
Awesome. Awesome.
Cool. Cool. Well, good for you, and thank you for all the organizing you've done so far. And you are awesome. And let's keep being awesome.
Oh
That's all
yeah, because everything is awesome. Another reference, but everybody knows. Everybody's gonna know how much I love Lego Movie at this point. So
Listen, there's no shame in that. No shame
Hey,
whatsoever.
no shame. I gotta plug it at every turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, man. Well, thank you so much.